having that a little bit out of body and being, I think one of the first times where I was like, actually like, is this what dying feels like? Like, what the hell is going on here?
This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Our goal is to educate and inform others about the realities of substance use in an engaging and entertaining format. We share these experiences so you can experience them without trying them yourself. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to attempt to recreate anything found in this episode or in any of our other content. We are not confessing to any acts stated in this podcast. The content in this episode should not be treated as factual or real in any way.
Magic mushrooms might be able to cure addiction.
For people suffering with severe PTSD, the benefit of talk therapy could be greatly improved with an unlikely drug, MDMA, popularly known as ecstasy.
Could a drug stop suicidal thoughts in hours? Well, there is a drug. It's called ketamine. It's an anesthetic, also used illicitly as a club drug, and it's now being used by some doctors who have patients in a serious suicidal state.
This Tuesday, voters in Colorado will decide on whether to decriminalize psychedelic mushrooms. They're illegal almost everywhere, but their apparent health benefits have put them on the ballot.
You're listening to Modern Day Hippie, the podcast about doing drugs in a responsible, fun, and safe way to improve your life. We're your hosts, Yuki and Reggie, and we hope you enjoy the show. Yo, what's up, guys? Super excited for today's episode. Going to be sharing a couple of stories that Reggie and I have accumulated over the past couple of weeks here. So we're just going to do a bit of a share out episode here, talk through some funny things. But Reggie, first off, I know you have a pretty exciting drug related update in your life.
Yeah, man. I actually quit smoking.
Damn. Dude, that's
kind of big.
That's impressive. Dude, yeah. And for context, like I feel like you've definitely become one of the bigger stoners that I know. So I'm impressed. Walk me through that decision.
Yeah, man. It got really bad, I think, because like I guess I started making a lot more money than what I'm used to. And I just started buying a bunch of gadgets and toys to smoke, which like I bought a volcano and like a giant bong and like a bunch of random things I didn't really need. And I think just having those always in front of me just consistently tempted me to smoke. And so I kind of, I got addicted, like frankly, like I definitely got addicted. But what ended up happening was I got like pretty sick recently, like with the flu or something. That's what they told me it was, at least. And I kind of like looked in the mirror and like looked at my mouth and like shined a flashlight into it and realized that I was completely damaging the inside of my throat. Like it was like all blistered up and red. And I hadn't even been like smoking consistently for like that long, but I guess that's just like one of the 10 commandments of drug use, right? Just be aware of how it affects you. And I realized that if I was going to get better from the flu, like I needed to like not smoke for a while. So here I am. And honestly, like the withdrawals are like, all right, but nothing crazy.
What have been some of those like withdrawal symptoms, I guess? Like what have you been feeling? And I don't know, is it like super shitty? Is it pretty manageable and like you're carrying on?
I will say I feel like my head has been like racing all the time since I stopped smoking. Like I feel like I'm just like there's always something going on, which before like I guess I was always high, so it didn't really feel that way. But
yeah,
the bigger part that kind of affects my day to day is like I completely lost my appetite because I used to only smoke, or I used to only really eat with the exception of like lunch at work. When I was high, like I wouldn't even want to eat sober at home because I was like, oh, Damn. It'll taste better when I'm high, which is stupid. Like, but what's even more stupid is just like this cycle I got myself into of like, cause this is the second time that I've stopped smoking after getting sick. So I just need to like figure out how to not go crazy with it if I do start smoking again.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's definitely one of those elements where it's like your environment has a big effect on it. Like you mentioned, you have all those really fun smoking gadgets. And also, I know you were telling me like you just have a lot of homies come over often and kind of, the thing to do is offer them some weed or just hang out and smoke. And it's tough to be like, okay, no, we're not going to do that this time.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like my apartment is like a revolving door. Like there's always people coming in and out and like everybody smokes and like I'm always going to offer it up, right? But I recently like people have been coming over and I'll still offer it up. They smoke. I just don't smoke and it's chill. Like it's actually a lot more chill than I thought it would be. I thought it would be awkward for me, like not being high when everyone else is, but it's really not that bad at all.
Nice. I'm glad that worked out. it sounds like it's gone better than expected, and obviously I think is doing a lot of positive things for your health. So keep it up, dude. I'm proud of you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
am looking forward to having a healed throat, especially.
Yeah, I bet. Is it just like scratchy? Is it like when you're sick and it's just a pain in the ass?
Well, I was kind of reading up on it a lot recently, and there's just like a lot of effects from smoking. Like, so like obviously the obvious symptoms for me are like the blistering in my mouth, right? Like there's visible red spots in my mouth from
Dude, that's
smoking
insane.
too much,
Jeez.
which is disgusting, honestly. But there's also like other effects that you don't really notice unless you kind of like do your homework, or like you just kind of realize what's going on in your body.
Mhm.
Like apparently when you smoke too much, you like the flap in your esophagus, like there's like two flaps, like one like towards the top and one towards like your like that connects to your stomach. It's like
Yeah,
one of them gets
okay.
really loose, and like that causes a lot more heartburn and stuff, which I've definitely been experiencing. And that, you know, down the
Shit.
line that can lead to like Barrett's esophagus and potentially cancer. And it's like I don't want that. So I'm gonna,
Yeah.
you know,
Damn, we're getting into the anatomy level of this.
yeah, man.
It's wild. Hell yeah.
There's
cool.
actually a great book. If anyone's interested in learning more about that kind of stuff, it's called The Acid Watcher Diet. The book is really about like a specified diet on how to like reverse a lot of the damage caused by not just smoking, but also just like eating too acidic things over time and stuff like that. But they do a really good job of explaining what the damage is and like how it happens.
Oh, dude, that's super interesting. I never thought there would be a book about that, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. How about you, Yuki? How
Dude,
things
yeah.
been?
Yeah, they've been good. Sharing some recent stories, and to kick things off on that side of things, I know we both have a New Year's Eve related story, which was about 2 weeks ago at time of recording. And so my story here is honestly New Year's Eve was just like a very fun but very, very long day, as I'm sure it was for quite a few people. And so it all kind of started during the daytime. Did a big barbecue with some friends. Actually was hanging out with you, Reggie, and a lot of our homies there. That was super chill, you know, like no drugs involved, just like good food, good people, good vibes, which was great. And so I stayed there until around like 11 o'clock. And then I went back home. And so my girlfriend and I's plan was just to do a ton of shrooms, watch like a movie or a TV show, and just kind of like, you know, spend like midnight and the time around that, just cuddling on the couch, spending time together, because that's honestly what we like to do. So I go home around 11. We take like a decent dose of our mushroom chocolates, and we start watching the new Knives Out movie on Netflix, which was super fucking good. Like it was a great movie. Watching on shrooms was a really interesting experience. Like parts of that movie are very like ethereal, and some of the choices and how the shots are made, like the colors are super bright, the characters are very kind of like larger than life, and definitely appreciated that a lot more on the mushrooms. And so while we were watching the movie, you know, like midnight hit, we're just like, yay, cool, new year, and then just finish the movie. And so we finished the movie at about 2 o'clock, and we knew that this like big party was going on, like a social club, like really close to our house. And we're like, all right, let's see if we can get in. And like tickets were like $100 or $200 to go in.
Damn.
But yeah, I'm like, I didn't really feel like paying that. So we had some friends just let us in, which was super nice of them.
That's awesome.
And they did get us in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, our game plan was probably to hang out for like a little bit, not go too crazy, but we get there at 2 a.m. And dude, okay, we end up staying until like 5 or 6 in the morning. First off, like we're there with all of our friends. It's like a very big party. So this like social club, there's both like a very cool like indoor portion where it's kind of like a house. And then they have this mini, imagine like an airplane hangar where it's kind of like long. But it's not quite as big as like an actual airplane hangar. And so they converted that entire hangar area into just this like rave den where at the end of it was like a DJ setup playing it's like music that you would only ever listen to that when you're on drugs. And when you're on drugs, it just like makes you feel like you're losing your mind. You're like, what the fuck is happening?
I know exactly what you mean, dude.
Yeah. It's just these kind of like jungle beats like type of shit. And they had some really good light setup in this like hangar area, which was impressive because there usually aren't like lights there normally. Like it was all just things that they plugged in and made a great setup. And then the coolest thing was they set up these like smoke machines that were like the smoke that they were shooting out. It was like scented with something. I don't know. It was something like herbal almost. That made me also think of like a jungle vibe. And so we're like in this rave den dancing. We did quite a bit of 2C and a little bit of ketamine. And there was like, I remember one of the times, like right after I did like a big dose of 2C and it really hit me. We were like at the front of this rave den. And at that exact moment, one of the smoke machines like turned on and it was right next to me. And the smoke was just like engulfing me. It was kind of like going in my nose and shit. And just like, I think it's like fine to, inhale a little bit. Like it's not going to do anything bad. But because it was kind of like cutting off like the oxygen that I was getting, and like there was that really strong scent of like whatever was like in the smoke, there was a moment where I'm like, am I dying right now? Like, is this the end? So I was tripping super hard. I'm like, I am breathing, but I'm just smelling this scent. And I like, don't feel like I'm getting the oxygen that I need. And so I wasn't super like, I wasn't freaking out about it because like in the back of my head, I knew like this is fine. Like I'm surrounded by other people who've literally been here for like several hours before I got here. Like everyone's fine. Like, had that little logical voice in my brain. But that was an interesting experience, like having that a little bit out of body and being, I think one of the first times where I was like, actually like, is this what dying feels like? Like what
Wait,
the hell is going on here?
Have you done Whippet before?
Yeah, I've done Whippets.
Did it feel like you hit a Whippet or something?
I'm trying to remember what it felt like because it's been a while. Yeah, honestly, I think it was pretty similar probably, but it lasted like several minutes. Whereas the Whippets is just like a, like couple of seconds sort of thing. And then the other funny thing about this party was that the theme of it was Burning Man, black tie. And so like literally just the vibe of this social club is just, it's like, I guess people who like already do Burning Man type of shit. Like people are just really into drugs and have like more money than they know what to do with. So they just have all these like crazy outfits and they just like party like crazy all night. And, after I chilled out a little bit and wasn't tripping as hard, we spent some time outside, just like hanging out with our friends, vibing with them. And I was meeting a couple new people. Dude, I swear these people were like living memes pulled straight out of just like my imagination of like what Burning Man would be like. Like just the outfits they're wearing, this like really hardcore like steampunk shit. And they're just like walking around. Like I was talking to a few of them and every single one of them would be like, yeah, man, I went to the burn like the last 4 years in a row. Like, but 3 years ago was the best one. And in my drug brain, in my head, I'm like, dude, I am like meeting a meme. Like, this is incredible. That was super funny. It was nice because in the outside area, they had some fires going. They literally have this like
this place.
it's pretty big. Like you could easily have a party there for probably a couple thousand people, honestly.
Wow.
And this party when we were there, I don't think it was more than like 300 to 400. And by the time we left at like probably 5 a.m., we were probably in the last like 50 people there. But it was a good vibe. And as someone like I've been interested in going to Burning Man at least once in my life and like just seeing like what the hell is up with that. And meeting some of these people in the flesh was just a really interesting experience, especially like they're on drugs, I'm on drugs. At some point I exchanged like some ketamine for some 2C, just kind of, some bartering and exchanges in the moment. But that was a memorable time. It was a great New Year's Eve and then went back home and kind of fell asleep as the sun rose. So
damn, that sounds awesome. Man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. What about you?
Well, so, I mean, we were together for part of New Year's Eve, like the barbecue, but I guess the day before, a decent number of friends and I decided it would be a good idea to all take mushrooms and go on a walk. And there were 12 of us total, which I've never tripped with that many people before. Yeah. And 11 of us were on mushrooms, then one person was like taking a bunch of edibles. But I guess like what all I'll say about that is it was a good time. It was fun, but we definitely just like we walked for like 6 miles, and we definitely were just like losing people along the way, like completely expectedly. Like I'm not even surprised, you know what I mean? Like, but it just kind of like reminded me that everybody like handles these things differently. Like, you know, like there was this one girl that was like super energetic and like laughing her ass off the entire time, and like this other girl who just like was just confused the whole time, and then like there was this guy who was just like super nauseous, like he barely even made the first mile, like. But and then there were like people like me and some of the other people that were with us that were just like chilling, having like deep conversations just because we could. So it was interesting. I definitely think that's too many people for like a large group or to trip with. But
yeah, I feel like the biggest group I've ever tripped with was maybe that time we were in Utah, which is a story for another time. But I think that was probably like 6 to 7 people. And that was also like a decent amount. Dude, wait, so when people would like get separated from the group, would they just be like walking more slowly? They just gonna like wander off and like do their
some
own
people
thing?
would literally just like, they'd like see a tree and then just stop and like start staring at it. And I'm like, bro, like we're not waiting for you. Like, but you know, we never left anyone alone. Everyone, like, if anyone ever stopped, they always had at least one other person with them. So it was pretty chill.
Okay, that's good.
But
yeah.
The craziest thing to me is that it's not even like the biggest group of people I've heard of tripping all at the same time. Like when I was in college, I was talking to this guy who was like the president of his frat, and he told me that every year they would do a pledge class trip, and they were like a giant frat. And so they would have 60 people all doing shrooms at the same time.
Holy shit.
Like floating down the river. Which honestly is such a better idea than trying to walk the whole time. Like,
yeah, that sounds so nice, dude.
Dude, that sounds amazing. Imagine just like 60 or 59 or however many like of your pledge brothers all just tripping. But I think that's the other thing is like they all at that point, like they all had bonded with each other. And so they were all super comfortable with each other versus like our group of like 12 people, like we all knew each other and were comfortable with each other, but it wasn't the same kind of connection, you know? Especially like on drugs, it makes a big difference.
Yeah. From what you told me earlier, it definitely seemed like a fairly random like amalgamation of people who were there. And something that just made me think of was I can't remember the last time I tripped with people who weren't, I guess, at like a similar level of like comfort or experience with psychedelics. Like I'm sure there was a lot of variety as well. Like, you know, someone like you who's tripped a shit ton of times at this point, and I'm sure there are some people there who, you know, only done it like a handful of times. I do think that makes a pretty big difference with just like the level of comfort and familiarity with it.
Yeah, man. I actually, I realized that my 5-year anniversary of tripping was last month.
Oh, do you have the exact date down?
Yeah, I do. It's on my phone. I forgot what it's like sometime in December, but
yeah.
5 years, man. That's wild. I didn't realize we've been doing it for that long. Like,
yeah, that's cool. I could probably figure out when my first time was. I need to check. I'll get back to you on that. But you had a good time overall with the group. I guess you had fun, but you wouldn't recommend a big group trip like that to people. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's pretty. I think that's pretty fair to say. I think it's not necessarily the size. I think it's really about what we were saying earlier. With we gotta make sure that everyone who's going to be doing it is like, you know, on the same level of like at least experience, or at least, you know, a little bit closer. And you have to be just like really comfortable with all the people around you to, if you want to stick together and stuff. I mean, obviously you don't have to.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like I think the last big group trip that you and I did was when we went to that amusement park, which was also a story for another time.
We gotta tell that story sometime.
Fucking blast. But that was also probably what, like 7 or 8 of us. And everyone was like pretty comfortable because we're at an amusement park around a bunch of people. And like that was like totally good.
Yeah, and it's like chill. It's not super strenuous. You're waiting in line most of the time, right? Like,
yeah. Although I do remember it was hot as fuck.
It was.
Yeah.
Oh, I will say one cool thing was after we like went on that long walk while tripping, I like went over to a homie's place, and he had a bunch of whippets, and I hit a whippet for the first time while tripping, and I was extremely pleasantly surprised. I will say, like, it completely brought back the trip, and I started getting a bunch of like auditory hallucinations, which are pretty rare, and I don't know, it was kind of cool. So if you ever have a chance to try that. I don't recommend doing it often at all because I don't think whippets are good for you at all. But it's cool to experience it, every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, especially on psychedelics, that sounds like a unique experience. I don't know if I'll ever try it myself, but I appreciate that for you. I'm happy that it went well.
Thanks.
Oh, dude, I just thought of so my birthday was pretty recently, and my girlfriend surprised me with this gift. It was this like device that I've never heard of before, and has like completely changed my like drug intake experience. And so it's this product called a Snow Go. It's like snow without the W, and then go. And so what it is imagine almost like a straw that's like, I don't know, an inch or two long. And it basically, like, there's like the straw portion itself. And then on the inside, there's like a spring loaded portion. That's kind of like this little spoon that pops up out of the bottom of the straw. And you can use it to like scoop up drugs, and then you release the button and like it pops back in. And so basically it stores like that small amount of like powder that you scooped up in that straw. And then you can just like hold the straw and bring it up to your nose. And so if you've ever tried snorting any kind of drug in like a concert setting or just around people, like it's always kind of sketchy, sticking your key in your little bag, trying to like balance it and bringing it up to your nose. And dude, with the Snow Go device, like you literally can just like stick it in your bag of like ketamine or coke or whatever you have. You kind of just like shoot the spring out, you like scoop up a little bit, and then you like close it back up. And once it's in the straw, you literally just need to like bring it up to your nose and snort it. And so like it's not going to fall out of there. It's like this little like chamber almost, like you load it and then you bring it up to your nose and you snort it. And dude, it's a great investment. I highly recommend. We'll put the link for it in the show notes, because honestly, it's honestly changed my experience with snorting drugs. And ever since I got it, I keep running into people who have them as well. I realized actually at that New Year's Eve party was the first time that I started seeing other people with it. And they literally make like Snow Go necklaces where you can attach your Snow Go to a necklace. And it's one of those things where if you saw it and you didn't know what it was, like you would just assume it's some like weird, like big pendant on a necklace. Or if you know what it is, like exactly what it is, exactly what kind of person that is. And so I thought it was just like a very funny, just like a signal of like, you're either like, what it is or you don't.
That's awesome.
But
how'd your girlfriend even find out about that?
Yeah, so she found out about it from our mutual friend, who is kind of like a small time drug dealer, but she's had one for a while, and my girlfriend found out about it. Was like, I bet he would appreciate this as a gift, and truly, it was a great gift. No, dude, and the funniest fucking part that gets me is that on their website, they can't advertise it as like an actual like drug paraphernalia, so they advertise it as being something for snorting cocoa powder.
Is that a thing? Like cocoa powder?
I don't fucking know. Okay. I don't think it is, but when you buy
That's
it,
hilarious.
like, yeah, every order of the Snow Go comes with a little vial of cocoa powder. And it even comes with this little like pocket sized card that lists out all the benefits of snorting cocoa powder.
That was clever.
And it was like, damn, like, is this actually a thing? And so I tried snorting some. Dude, I thought it was terrible. I thought it was
really? You actually tried it?
Yeah, dude, like it was terrible. I was like, this feels and like kind of tastes worse than like any snorting drug that I've done.
Dude, I thought it was gonna be good because like when I got the volcano, it says like you should put sage in it and stuff like that, and like if you smoke it, it's actually really nice. So I would have thought cocoa powder would have been cool too.
Yeah, I could see that honestly. I think just having it in your nose, like it just feels. I don't know. It was just a really weird flavor, like mixing with like, I don't know, your snot or your shit.
Yeah,
like it was not nice. But next time you come over, if you want to try it, we still have the entire
I would love
vial
to try the
of cocoa powder. Yeah. And literally like if you go on their website, it's like half of the copy on the website is like health cocoa powder related, and half of it is like, this is the greatest revolution in partying since like the invention of disco music.
That's so clever,
dude. Yeah, but honestly, it's a product I can really get behind, and definitely check it out. It is a little bit pricey for what it is, honestly, but it feels super premium. They're all made of like really nice metal, and honestly, like it's made when I actually go out to parties and shit and like bring some snorting drugs with me, it's so much easier to do them discreetly and like not even sweat it. Like, super worth it in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that brings me to my last story I wanted to cover today. So this was literally this past weekend. Literally was not planning on doing anything like crazy that weekend. So my girlfriend and I have been playing a lot of this video game called Stardew Valley, which is like very relaxing kind of Animal Crossing type of game. You know, you just take care of your crops, you raise your chickens, and it's really fun to play together. And so we've kind of been on that vibe, just like hanging out, playing video games at home. But this was this past Saturday at night. We heard there was like a big party happening at the Soho House in our city, which is this like social club thing that we have friends who are members of. And they're like, hey, you should come to this party. Like it's like $10 or something to go. We're like, all right, fine. You know, we'll go check it out for an hour or two. Like whatever, you know, as every one of my nights starts, it's like a reluctance going out. And so we get to this like club thing, and it's not like a dancey club. It's just like, it's this like social club with a bunch of rooms. They have like, it's like part of a hotel. I don't really know. It's weird. But they had this big like music room thing where they had the actual party, and it was kind of weird. Like the party itself was pretty lame. Like the room was like big, like the size of like a very large apartment if it was all just like one giant room. But the ceiling was super low. Like the ceiling was as low as it is in like a normal apartment, if not like a little bit lower. So it felt kind of like oppressive. And it was this giant square room with just like a bar on one side. And then something that they did that was cool was it was like a DJ night. Like every hour they had a new DJ coming on just to kind of show off their music and whatever. And the DJ booth was actually towards the middle of the room. So there were people standing like all around it, like to the side and behind it, kind of like a boiler room type of vibe. And just like everything was just lit up with like red lights. But the music wasn't great. When we got there at like, I think it was like 10:30 at night, it was like not super poppin'. So we were just like chatting with our friends who were there, just hanging out with them for a bit. And at some point I was like, okay, this is not like just a party or something where I'm going to have fun if I'm like not doing drugs.
Oh my God.
So I go to the bathroom and I do like a big dose of ketamine. I go back to the like dance hall or whatever. And, you know, it hits me. I start having a good time. And then all of a sudden, I think I got a text from one of our other friends who was there with us, but who had like, we didn't know where she was the last like 15, 20 minutes. She's like, oh, like come to like the rooftop bar. Like we're meeting up with these other friends. And we'd never been to this like place before. So we had no idea what like the upstairs was like. So we like find our way upstairs. We go up some sketchy like stairwell and like find our way to this thing that like ends up being this really nice lounge area that just looks like a restaurant. And so imagine you're in like a bougie restaurant with people just chilling, like eating their food, like not at all in party mode. You walk in there and you're just like basically K-holed out of your mind. And you're just walking through this room and, you know, we find our friends and I'm just like, I'm just going to stick with you guys because you're the only people I can like talk to right now in my current state of mind. And then someone else starts introducing us to new people. They're like, oh, you should like meet this guy and that guy. And I try having conversations with these people, but like my brain just feels so stupid. Like I literally just can't. Like I'm like I try. I like say a few things. I'm like, oh, so like what do you do? And I just like find like the nicest way possible to be like, I'm so sorry. I just like my brain can't handle this conversation right now. And then I just go back and retreat to like our one other friend who just like we're super comfortable with, and she's like, yeah, you know, this is a safe little space, like this space between these like three chairs. But that like really fucked with me. Like I'd never been on a bunch of ketamine and then been drawn into a setting that's just like a completely normal space where, you know, I'd be like meeting people or networking or shit like that. So I think if I had taken less, I would have been fine, but I had taken a dose that was like a party dose, not like a socialization dose. And I was like, this is fucked. And so I have no idea how long it was. It felt like a lifetime of just like hiding in this little like it wasn't even the corner. Like we were literally sitting at the bar in the middle. There's a really nice looking bar, you know, where like the bartenders wear like those old timey shirts and shit like that. I was like, this is stupid. So finally we convinced our friends to go back downstairs to like the dance hall. And by then it had gotten more crowded. It was a better time. Like we had fun. And so we danced and did whatever until about like midnight or 12:30. And then, by that point I was already like on drugs. Like the train was already going for the night. And I was like, let's keep it going. We're already out. Like, let's go. And so what we do is we go to our usual after party spot, which is this same social club that I mentioned for New Year's Eve, which is basically just like a drug den for adults who are chill. And so we go there and we get there like early, it's like 1 a.m. Like, where it's our group is there, which they're all people who, we can always like chat and have a great time with. But literally between 1 a.m. and like 3 a.m., like more and more people start milling in. Somehow a DJ always comes out of nowhere. And that whole night I'm just kind of like re-upping on ketamine. And dude, I had some really like, I feel like pro level interactions while I was on ketamine. So one of them, yeah, no, and I was amazed, but also sometimes I didn't know what I was doing. So for example, lately when I've been going out, I'll bring ketamine, but I'll just bring like a little bit of every other drug in case like someone else wants some. And the example for that for me is Coke. Like I don't really do Coke anymore. I had like some extra left over. I'll just bring it like with me if my friends want any, but it's not something I've done in quite a while. And so one of the guys we were with was like, they knew I brought a couple of drugs because I was giving them some and they were just like, give me some cash. He's like, oh, like, do you have any Coke? Can I have some? I'm like, dude, you want to just like buy this bag that's like almost a gram? And he's like, okay, sure. So we go in like the corner of this like house at this like social club and we sit down at a table and I was like, welcome to my office, because we're like kind of a little bit detached from the music. And so then what ensues is this just like really awkward 5-minute conversation of us trying to like communicate what is like the fair value of like that cocaine, because I knew it was less than a gram. I just didn't know how much less because I hadn't like weighed it before I left. And so I was like, I want to make sure that I'm like giving him like a fair deal. Like I want to give him like exactly like what I paid for this, like scaled to the amount that was left, but I didn't know the amount that was left. I didn't remember how much I paid for it. And literally like it'd been so long since I actually bought Coke that I like didn't know like how much like a gram was in general. Yeah. So I was asking him, I'm like, wait, how much does a gram of Coke usually go for? And I tried to make it super clear. I'm like, dude, like, I promise you, I'm not like thinking this hard because I'm trying to rip you off. Like, I'm thinking this hard because I just want to get like a fair deal all around. And we settled on something. I think he gave me like $50 or $60 for it was probably like, I don't know, half to like a quarter or 3/4 of a gram, which I'm totally fine with. I also don't care because it was Coke. But that was really funny. And then actually I was talking to this guy's wife, and she's one of those people when she's on drugs, she gets so talkative. And if she starts talking to you, she just like, you just get in her bubble and you cannot escape. Like you're just like trapped. And it's super funny because everyone in our group knows that. Like from a distance, we'll see when she just like traps someone. And we're just like, oh man, like we're not going to see that guy for like the next like 30 minutes or an hour. But it's funny because she also knows that she does that. So she's very like self-aware of it. And I kind of got trapped in her bubble with the conversation, but dude, it was such a good conversation. So lately I've been kind of interested in Buddhism and just like getting deeper into like that level of spirituality as someone who's like not spiritual or religious in the least. And at some point I brought that up to her, and apparently I didn't know this, but she's like very into Buddhism. She's like explored it a lot for literally the last like 15, 20 years. And we just had such a good conversation about it. And I wish I could remember more of it, just the way that like those principles apply to like relationships and like building like, just a happy and life filled with love. And there was just a moment in time. And also for the whole part of this, I'm on so much ketamine and somehow I'm like still pretty coherent, like definitely way better than I was at that weird restaurant setting. And I think part of it was just because I was with people I was super comfortable with and we're all on some type of drugs. And there were some moments in that conversation when like in my head, I had this feeling that I just like had it figured all out. I'm like I just felt like I had found like the key to life, like the key to happiness in that moment during that conversation on those drugs. And I've had sensations like this before. And I always know that like, I always like forget what the realizations are. And so this time I like kind of accepted that, but I'm also like, let me just really try to remember this feeling and just how like at peace and how like happy with the world I felt. It was a very surreal experience. Like that was definitely a highlight. And then we ended up staying at the social club until Also like 5 a.m. again.
Jeez, bro.
Yeah. And then we went back home, my girlfriend and I, because we literally live like 5 minutes away from there. And one of our friends also came with us, and we just stayed up with her talking until like the sun came up, and also just had really great conversations and that kind of like afterglow moment of like all the various drugs that we were on.
Nice. Did you write down any of your realizations like in the moment, or did you like, you don't remember?
No, I didn't. Like, they're kind of like these strands going on in my head, and like, it's like the harder I would try to like grasp onto one of them, like the more it would kind of like escape me. It's like sand slipping through your fingers.
It's like when you're dreaming, right? Like when you're trying to remember a dream, like.
No, exactly. And it was super interesting because like after this really, like I think we were literally talking about like Buddhism for probably 45 minutes of real life, which in drug time like felt like forever. And after a while, I was literally like, I need some time to process this. I literally went in a corner. I just sat in a chair by myself and like literally just tried to like I close my eyes and just like explore like the thoughts I was having as a result of this. And just the more I tried to grasp them or like put them into reality, like the more I felt them slipping. And it wasn't even close to me feeling like, oh, I could just pull out my phone and like take notes on these. Like, I don't know. I do remember some like key words and key portions of it. And honestly, I haven't seen this friend since we had that conversation. So it'd be interesting next time I see her, maybe to like also try having that conversation sober and see if that kind of like reawakens any of the realizations or the feelings that I got from it.
That's awesome. I'm glad you did that. Dude,
yeah, it was a great experience. And it was probably like the 3rd or 4th night I've ever had of only doing ketamine the whole night. It was honestly so much fun. Like, it was great. I have been enjoying ketamine more and more. And it's not something I do more than like once a month, honestly, because like we don't party super often. And I have been learning more about just like, okay, like I know ketamine is bad for you. It can be addictive. I think that doing it not frequently is like, okay, I'm like not addicted to it. But it can also have like really bad effects on like your bladder and stuff like that. But I was reading some stories of like what actually happens and like the bladder issues and shit like that. Like that happens to people who do like a gram a day for like months at a time.
Oh
like
that
is just like, you have to get to an like insanely excessive amount of it. And so I just realized like, you know, if I'm doing this like once a month and even in those settings, since I don't do it often, it hits me pretty hard. I'm probably like in the whole night, I'm probably doing like 1/2 to 3/4 of a gram, like tops, and I have a great time. I'm like, that seems like a reasonable like limit on that.
Yeah, totally agree, man. I feel like a gram's a lot for ketamine. Like, I did a gram of ketamine the first time I did ketamine, and I was so spaced out. Like, I forgot that I had like a life.
No, I know.
But I was at a concert, so it was
crazy.
chill, you know. Yeah,
yeah. The concert is your life.
Yeah, I just became the music.
I know the feeling. It's that those are such memorable experiences, though. Like those are really like they feel like once in a lifetime moments, but like they don't even have to be once in a lifetime. All right, and we'll leave you with that, with the stories that we said today. That's the pod. Thank you guys so much for listening. We really fucking appreciate y'all. If you want to show us some love, it would actually mean the world to us. If you're listening on YouTube, drop the video a like and the channel a subscription. And if you're listening on a podcast, just leave us a quick rating. These few seconds of your time go a really long way in helping us out. If you want to hit us up with questions, episode ideas, or anything else, you can reach us on Twitter at MDHpod or email us at mdhpod@gmail.com. Finally, we're just getting started with the pod, and our promise to you is to make every episode at least 1% better than the last. We'll catch you next week.